Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. It's always great to see a lot of familiar faces as well as some new ones. Thanks for attending our webinar this morning on Explore the Benefits of Clean Energy. We're going to give you a few minutes. Well, we already gave everybody a few minutes, so we're just going to go ahead and continue. All right. So here's the agenda for today. What's new from Enova? And then the main presentation, explore the benefits of clean energy credits. And then afterwards, we're going to have a bit of a Q&A session. So what's new from Enova? So Enova has drafted its conditions of service, detailing our operation practices, connection policies, and terms and conditions for our customers. We ask that you go online to the link provided, and we encourage you to share your comments and concerns and questions. Also, just a friendly reminder that EWB reports are due by July 1st. Just remember that the report requests may take up to 6 weeks to process. And finally, join us for our last webinar before the summer break, where we will discuss clean technology investment tax credits. It promises to be an interesting session. So, and here's a little plug for Enova Power for Key Accounts team. Go Key Accounts. Just a friendly reminder that Andrew and I are here to support our customers. We act as a single point of contact for all energy-related queries, ensuring prompt and efficient assistance whenever needed. We can analyze your energy usage patterns, identify opportunities for optimization and energy efficiency, and help set realistic goals for cost savings and sustainability. Oops, I did something. There's a few more things, but I lost my slides. Anyways, so without any further delay, I'm going to hand the stage over to Kimia and Michael, who are going to help us explore the benefits of clean energy credits. So over to you, Kimia and Michael.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So yeah, just wanted to say a quick hello and a quick thank you to everybody who not only joined, also a huge thank you to both Andrew and Chris with Enova for helping us set this webinar up and just be able to speak to a lot of you guys. So really appreciate that and yeah, for all of your help. So yeah, without further ado, happy to start the discussion on the CEC program. So you can head over to the next slide if you have it.
Kimmy, I was just going to say, if any participants have any questions throughout the presentation, just to raise a hand here or plug it into the chat, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that.
Yep, perfect. Sounds good. Okay. Are you going to be showing the slideshow at all?
Oh yeah. Do you want us to share our screen, Andrew?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
No worries at all.
Okay. Do you have that, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Alrighty, is the screen share working?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay. So just a quick, company overview on Carbone. We are a financial services shop. We were founded in 2008. We're based over here in New York City. That's where both Mike and I are and the majority of the team. We've also got offices in London and in Boston as well. So, the main three pillars of our business are brokerage, market research, and then our financial advisory / capital markets division as well. So, the main two, I would say, being brokerage and research. Both Mike and I sit on the brokerage desk, and we specialize in renewable energy credits. So, we see those transacting on a day-to-day basis. We're out there dealing with the buyers and sellers of these attributes, hearing about what their particular needs are, and then connecting them to one another based on our pretty large client network. So with that being said, in addition to REX, we also broker a wide array of different environmental commodities, Those range anywhere from renewable fuels to power and capacity, carbon offsets, really anything in the commodity space is something that we work in, you know. And then on the other side, we've got the research desk as well. So we really work hand in hand with the research team to provide bespoke environmental commodity deliverables. So those look a lot like, you know, for example, a 40 to 50 page market report that analyzes the supply and demand of a particular commodity market in a particular geography, taking into account any legislation changes, pricing forecasts, things like that. And so in addition to that, they also just on a day-to-day basis collect a really wide variety of pricing information. So, you know, they work with the brokerage team to collect that data, as well as third-party resources to just fill in any gaps where brokerage might be missing. And then in addition to daily pricing, they also produce forward curves for virtually every single environmental commodity market. So those go out to 10 years, and those we have off the shelf. And then in addition, you know, merchant curves as well for all those markets. And then any further than that, they're also able to do. It's more on a bespoke basis. So, you know, they've forecasted out 20, 30, 40 years into the future. So that's something that they're able to do as well. So we really work closely between the two teams. And then our financial advisory capital markets team as well, which has a bit shifted over to our sister company named Captona, who's on the asset management side. They've sort of absorbed this third leg a bit more, but that's something we also offer as well. So in terms of our clients, oh, actually, I'm just was gonna add one more note on the clients we work with. But our clients range from Fortune 500 companies to utilities, retail energy providers, developers, financial institutions, really anyone who's in the energy space. So on the next slide. So just generally how rec sales through Carbone work and what we offer. We are capable of transacting anywhere from spot transactions. So, you know, that might look like a few hundred SRECs, you know, here and there. We're able to do that, all the way to hundreds of thousands, millions of RECs on the spot market. So really it's a scalable process that we have. There's not like a volume requirement that we work with in terms of how many RECs or attributes we can transact. And in addition to spot sales, you know, we on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis are also transacting mid to long-term rec hedges as well. So, you know, 10 to 15 years out is something that we can structure and find buyers for. And then on a volumetric basis, that usually looks like something around, you know, upwards of 25 million megawatt hours a year that we can transact. And then just moving over to our, you know, awards that we've won and whatnot. Carbone is regularly recognized by Environmental Finance for being a top broker in our different commodity fields that we broker. So what really differentiates Carbone is kind of like I mentioned, that marriage between our research and our brokerage sides of the business, which pretty much allow us to deliver the best solutions for our clients because of the workings of those two teams together. So, you know, like I mentioned, the brokerage team, we conduct direct outreach to clients, we execute transactions, we consult clients on pricing and when might be the best time to enter the market, as well as assisting in pricing negotiations, you know, when we're working on a live deal. And then the research team, you know, they specialize in bespoke market reports for different commodities, legislative analysis, tracking where prices are for all of our commodities. So it's really these two things together that allow for Carbone to provide the most accurate data to our clients and to really help them optimize their transactions. So moving on to the IESO, as I'm sure you all are familiar with, the IESO is the grid operator of Ontario. So they focus on not only managing Ontario's real-time power system, they are planning for any future energy needs, and they're also designing a more efficient grid and energy marketplace. So the IESO has clean energy credits that they receive through units that are under contract with them. So that's essentially where Carbone comes in, and we were selected to be the exclusive marketer of these clean energy credits. So I will let Mike discuss a little bit more on the next slide.
Thanks, Kimmy. So of course, I'm sure we're at a point after company intros wondering what exactly are CECs. So CECs in this context are the equivalent of RECs in effectively every other market you guys may be working in. In this case, the ISO / the province has just decided to call them CECs rather than RECs, but ultimately they represent 1 megawatt hour of energy for everyone's reference. So when you're looking at your own consumption and some of the pricing that we're going to share a little later, each of those prices represents 1 megawatt hour. The CEC program, in effect, was brought about a few years ago now, and this is really the first year of sales, where before the CEC program, there wasn't truly an option to go and purchase unbundled credits to make your own emissions claims in Ontario. You can do that in other provinces like Quebec, Alberta, but for Ontario, the door had kind of been shut after some issues with another counterparty selling RECs internationally into the US market. And this was the solution that the province came up with. So ultimately, CECs can come from a number of different technologies that I want to highlight: biofuels, biogas, hydro, biomass, nuclear, solar, and wind. However, I do want to highlight in this presentation and for the CCs that Carbone is marketing on behalf of the ISO, we are strictly marketing solar, wind, and hydro. The reason for that is those are the contracts that the ISO has the rights to CCs for. So no reason that we're not marketing the biomass or biogas here. It's more so the ISO doesn't have it. So there could be other suppliers in the market that do. Also want to flag, if I say RECs instead of CECs for the rest of this presentation, please consider them interchangeable. In 99% of the other markets we work in, they're just RECs. So of course, I'm sure one of your next questions is, why is a New York firm helping with the administration of an Ontario program? So I figured it'd be helpful to give some background on Carbone's involvement with the program, as well as our relationship with the ISO. So the ISO reached out to Carbone late last year, looking for this exact type of program assistant that they needed on both the analysis and consulting side, as well as brokerage. So specifically, the fact that we had both the brokerage and research desks in-house was something very attractive to them, as they had millions of megawatt hours of CECs and didn't necessarily have a price methodology in place. So our research desk, as Kimmy mentioned, already has pricing models for every US RPS and voluntary REC market, as well as several of the Canada markets as well, namely Alberta and the broader Canadian voluntary market. So we were able to lean on existing supply-demand dynamics in those neighboring provinces, as well as some US states, to use as proxy markets. We kind of stripped back those supply-demand fundamentals and used them to rebuild what would be the Ontario CEC pricing methodology. So we built several cases. I'm saying we, by the way, but our research desk is much smarter folks than Kimmy and I. We're on the brokerage side. But we built several cases, both high case, base case, low case, price methodologies for the ISO, all of which will be released to the public. I believe the ISO is still kind of, as you know, can move slow, but they will be releasing our methodology and our equations used for the pricing that you'll see later, in the interest of transparency to the province. With that, we decided to break the CEC program into different tiers for the ISO. So there's a lot of CECs managed by the organization, and we wanted to break them into mainly 3 tiers that we want to highlight here. And we'll go into them in more detail on pricing, but for your reference, we've broken out the solar, wind, and hydro into 3 separate tiers priced differently in order to provide different options for folks. So that kind of gives a broad idea of the research group's involvement with the ISO. On the brokerage end, we're doing things like this. We're conducting client education calls, webinars, we're practically consultants for the ISO at this point on explaining what the program is, what your options are, working with partners like Enova Power who have clients that may be interested. And then ultimately, if some of you are interested in purchasing CECs, we will be assisting in the actual purchase. So we'll be assisting with negotiations of commercial terms, communicating on behalf of the ISO, and working as a liaison between purchasers and the ISO. So getting into the mechanics of purchasing the ISO's CECs, this is really the first time Ontario companies are going to be able to make clean energy claims by purchasing unbundled wind and solar renewable energy credits from the province. Hydro and nuclear from Bruce and OPG have been available in recent years in the market and in years past. But to our knowledge, for the wind and solar, especially owned by the ISO, this is the first time that this offering is available to companies looking to make an ESG claim, which is very exciting. So through Carbone, we're able to offer a blend of different offerings to you guys based on the 3 technologies I mentioned before. And the CECs in general are going to be produced, tracked, transferred, and retired all directly on the MRETS tracking system, which, for those of you who don't know, is the leading REC tracking system for voluntary REC markets in the US and Canada. MRETS is an important player in this space because they provide both transparency in that they provide a specific serial number for every single megawatt hour the ISO is delivering to you. They also protect against double counting. So MRETS works to make sure that any RECs on their tracking system aren't being claimed elsewhere. And the ISO had to sign off on that, that any RECs that we are selling, when they are delivered to you and retired, that is where the claim lies, right? They're not being double counted or retired to someone else's load. They're being singled out and transferred on this tracking system. CECs are now available. We are in full sales mode. We have a full set of offerings on CECs for you guys and anyone else who might be interested. For those of you who have made unbundled REC purchases in the past, there are a few program specifics that I want to call out ahead of time, just in the interest of transparency, and to make sure that everyone's aligned on what purchasing CECs actually looks like. Most importantly, there are no brokerage fees for CEC purchases. We will not be charging you any additional fees. If you're working with consultants and they're charging, just their typical retainer, of course, that's just standard for any purchase you're making. But ultimately, I want to make it clear, Carbone is not charging anyone on this side. The ISO is covering all of our fees for our work in this engagement on both the research and brokerage end. Different from REC markets that you may be working for elsewhere, and I think this is a pretty interesting aspect of this program, credits can only be transferred once. So the RECs that you're receiving will be coming directly from the ISO in their MRETS account. they're not going to be traded across the board. So in unbundled US rec markets and Canada voluntary rec markets, we see wild market speculation, right? With recs trading hands sometimes 20, 30 times before they reach the end consumer. In this case, there's no markup, no trading. It's direct delivery from the ISO to you guys, which is very valuable and the only market to my knowledge that behaves this way. So in the interest of transparency, you know exactly where the CECs are coming from. You know the exact price. There's a transparent schedule that we'll share later and is publicly available. And you can just rest assured knowing that you are ultimately buying these for the purpose of the program and not just profit for a random trader. With that being said, you as an end purchaser will need to create an MRETS account, which in other markets, if you've purchased RECs in the past, sometimes third parties will just retire them on your behalf and you don't even need to worry about creating an MRETS account. However, for the ISO to safeguard against the idea of folks being able to double count these, as well as folks being able to trade these, they want end users to have an MRETS account so that they can deliver them directly to you. The good news is, if you as a purchaser want to use someone like Enova as your third party to manage this process, you can. So MRETS has allowed for end users to create an MRETS account and then give access to that account to a third party like Enova who knows what they're doing on MRETS, so you don't have to worry about accidentally unretiring these or doing something crazy that you didn't even know could happen on the tracking system. So you can have a third party managing that account for you, which is very valuable. And I know folks are limited in both resources and time. So if you have a third party that you like to use for that, they'll be able to help you. You just need to create the actual account. The other thing that is nice about this program is we can cater delivery and payment timing to your preference. If you want to purchase at the end of the year when you have a clear picture of what your energy consumption is, we'll be able to structure delivery and payment that works for you. The ISO does require prepayment on the day of delivery for reference. However, we can ahead of time schedule all of that. So if you want to wait until January 15th of 2025, for instance, when you know your full energy consumption, we can schedule payment and delivery.
I think Michael got frozen there for a second.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Awesome. Let me go back to the presentation. So as mentioned, we can schedule delivery and payment. Now that everyone's listening, right? Since I got booted, to your preference. If you want to do a forward purchase and for cash flow purposes, you want to do several deliveries a year, we'll be able to structure that as well. So important things I just wanted to highlight there. And then before we kick it to Kimmy, and I'll throw up the 2024 CEC pricing for everyone, I really want to harp on the purpose of this program, right? Because I feel like some of those mechanics that I just explained are cumbersome. Ultimately, the reason for all of these safeguards and the need for end users to have an MRETS account is the ISO and partners want to sell Ontario-cited renewables to Ontario energy consumers, with the funds going to a clean energy fund. So ultimately, the purpose of the Clean Energy Fund is going to be new renewable development within the province, leading to the program's purpose of we're selling Ontario RECs to Ontario load consumers, with the proceeds going to the new development of renewables in Ontario, which I think is a very unique and novel approach to unbundled EAC sales. We see in other markets proceeds going to folks who might have, they're complete middlemen and have nothing to do with the markets themselves. They're market makers. Whereas in this case, the ISO has tried to streamline the entire process to make sure that you are getting transparent RECs and your funds are going directly to new renewables within the province that you call home. So with that, I'll kick it to Kimmy to talk about 2024 CECs and the pricing that's available.
Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, so this slide very much speaks for itself. As you can see here, these are the prices for 2024 CECs that our research team, came up and worked with the ISO to establish. All pricing that we list here, or if you ever are speaking directly with us over email or something like that, we'll always be listing the prices in Canadian dollars. So as you can see for solar, that is going to be $3.45 Canadian. Wind is going to be $2.20 Canadian, and then hydro is going to be 91 cents. So these are prices that are, for the most part, stagnant. It's not like a normal rec market where you're gonna reach out to us one day and pricing is going to be here, and then in 1 or 2 days pricing is tanked or it's skyrocketed. None of that is going to apply here. If anything, on a biannual basis, the ISO and our research team reevaluates pricing, looks at where supply and demand is based on just where trades have been. And they might adjust those slightly, but and looking down the curve, there's slight decreases in pricing as the years go by, and we'll have a slide next with 2025 pricing, where you'll be able to see that as well. So notably for solar and wind, these are going to come from assets that have come online in the last 10 years. And then as well, I think Mike mentioned this already, but we're able to structure this really in any way that is ideal for your needs. So if there's any blend that you'd like to put together of 50% solar, 30% wind, 20% hydro, what have you, we can structure blends based on that. Or if there's a number in mind for a price that you really, you just need this price, and you can play with the blend in order to achieve that price, that's something that we're able to do as well. So, you don't have to say that I'm going to be purchasing X amount solar. It doesn't have to all come from one tier. I will note that for hydro, at this time, the ISO is not able to commit to full hydro sales. The hydro CECs need to be blended in with, either solar or wind, just in order to allow for there to be, as it is the lowest cost CEC, enough for everybody in the program, to use, because it does bring down the price of it. So they would like for, one party to not be able to come in and then take all of the cheapest rec and not leave any for the remaining parties.
With that, if you have specific needs, if you have budgetary constraints, and let's say you need an average price of $1, we're happy to look at whatever specific needs you have and relay it to the ISO to see if we can find some form of an equitable solution for you. The other thing I want to flag that I should have mentioned earlier, we've noted that the solar and wind CECs are all coming from assets that have achieved COD within the last 10 years, which meets the basic protocols for most green energy purchasing guidelines. That being said, these are new renewables. The ISO for the time being is not participating in the Green E program or the Eco Logo program. So these RECs are not Green E certified, nor are they Eco Logo. However, they meet all of the basic guidelines that those programs dictate, but just something I wanted to flag in the interest of transparency.
And then, just looking next to 2025 CEC pricing, as you can see, it's slightly below 2024. And that's, as we look at merchant pricing for the next 10 years, that's the trend that they're all going to follow. So they all sort of dip each year. So, tier 2 for solar, those are going to be $3.11 Canadian. For wind, it's going to be $1.99. And then for hydro CECs, that's going to be 85 cents Canadian.
We also are able to offer you long-term CEC strips. So ultimately, RECs are a financial product, and some of you may have green goals where you need to be 100% renewable by, say, 2030. We're able to hedge that risk by offering fixed rates over the next several years, as far out as 9 years we have approval for, However, if you want something like a 10-year hedge, which is why I have the asterisk there, we have it priced out, right? We did the modeling all the way out to 15 years. However, the ISO at this time is only wants to offer forward hedges out to 9 years. So if you have more bespoke long-term interests, please let us know, right? We can talk to the ISO and see if it's something that we can offer. What I want to highlight for you all is ultimately this price is a sliding scale. There is a discount just based off of our expected supply demand fundamentals over time that rewards going out and hedging. So if you were looking to do something like a 9-year hedge and have your full CEC commitment handled for, say, the next 9 years, it's going to be a sub $3 product. If you're blending wind and hydro, it's a sub $2 product. I want to flag on the hydro. The ISO is committed to offering hydro over 5-year terms. So once we get past 5 years, we will have to consult with the ISO on hydro offerings in particular to make sure that they have the supply that they can commit, or if we'll need to blend other technologies. However, the pricing you're seeing for wind and solar is firm and actionable. If you said, hey, Mike, 7 years at that price sounds great. How do I get started? We'll be able to get you in touch with the ISO. If you're working with Enova, we'll include them on contract negotiations, and you'll be good to sign. As for contracting, the ISO has taken our rec contract and made it their own. So it's a very standardized rec contract for you guys. It shouldn't be anything that you're not used to seeing. And it's something that is kind of bulletproof for the next 9 years, right? You're going to have this type of commitment from the ISO for rec delivery. I know that some of you have varying size for your energy consumption. I want to reiterate the prices you've seen on the last few slides are going to hold for a few thousand CECs, and they're going to hold for a few 100,000 CECs. We've had smaller inquiries of folks trying to just cover the consumption of a handful of retail spots to heavy industrial users looking for 500,000 CECs per year. Our goal in this program, one of our goals, of course, is equity. We are offering the same price to everyone, and we will be inclusive of all inquiries that are coming to folks. We're not giving discounts to the big guys. We're holding firm on our pricing here. On the topic of fees, I want to be transparent that with MRETs comes some small fees, but I just want to make sure all costs are realized ahead of time to you guys. So to create this MRETs account that we've talked about to be able to take title to CECs and ultimately retire them, there is an annual fee, which is $2,500 US for a general subscription. There is also a voluntary retirement fee of 2 cents US for retiring those recs. Those fees come from MRETs specifically. They don't come from Carbone or the ISO. It's more so to keep the tracking system online and in-house, right? MRETs is a nonprofit. They're not doing this for profit. They're doing this for energy transparency. So as you are budgeting for your CEC purchasing, I just want to make sure those fees are outlined so we don't reach an uncomfortable spot where you're ready to make CECs and now it's $2,500 more expensive than you anticipated.
Michael, when it
Yes.
comes to using a third party for the MRETs, how are those fees? Does each party need to have their own subscription then?
Nope. So they would really just be giving your email access to their account. So that it would just be one entity needs to pay the fee. With that, I wanted to say thank you again to both Andrew and Chris for giving us the opportunity to speak with you all. I have my contact info and Kimmy's as well as kind of the general Carbone info here, but I welcome any questions from the field, and we're hopeful that this leads to some CEC sales.
Great. Thank you, Kimmy and Michael. Any questions? Anyone have any? I know that was a bit of a high level overview, and I'm not sure. Maybe if anybody could speak up, and if they've actually purchased any of these CECs, maybe that'd be nice to Hear from the group here. I know it's been around for since late last year, so it's still relatively new, and I'm sure a lot of people are tuning in today just to what are these things all about, right? I haven't heard of them until now, so
Yeah.
I hope this is enough to get everyone kind of interested in thinking about you know, how they can use CECs to kind of push them over that final finish line. You know, Chris and I were always preaching, you know, the pyramid, right? They start with conservation, then energy efficiency, reducing waste and whatnot, and kind of this is like the last, you know, the peak of the triangle, the last bit. If you can't totally remove your GHGs, and this is how you can kind of offset that to achieve that final net zero target.
Yeah, what I also found interesting was that, you know, there's different rates for the different technologies between the wind, solar, and hydro. I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, we tried to price those based off where they trade in the unbundled markets elsewhere. And Andrew and Chris, I know you're more familiar with what the going rate for, say, Greenie rec is or an Ecologo rec is. We needed to be competitive with those as well. So I think you'll find that not only have we split the tiers to make them competitive, but when you compare them to neighboring provinces and just the general national price, CECs, especially on a long-term basis, are substantially cheaper, like to the tune of several dollars.
So
Uh,
will Carbone ever be entering with the nuclears CACs, or is that a totally different entity?
Different entity, yeah. So the ISO doesn't have any nuclear contracted for the time being, at least to our knowledge. They just have the wind, solar, and hydro. But for those interested in nuclear, I would recommend reaching out to, I think it's Bruce that has nuclear. Yep.
mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and we can provide that information if anybody wants to reach out after this webinar. We have a contact there and some information we can provide about that program or those CECs. Cool. So yeah, like Michael mentioned there, you know, you can rely on Enova here to help you through this this process, similar to our involvement in the Save on Energy program over the years. We can be, you know, as we were your applicant rep for that process, we can also help guide you through this process as well. So by all means, we're that smart, reliable friend you can rely on. Our slogan is, right? So take advantage of us. We're here to help you.
Exactly. And we're also a phone call or an email away. So
Okay.
does anybody have any other questions? Either unmute yourself or throw it in the chat, and we'll go from there. I see some people already logging off.
Yeah.
So I gotta take that as a sign that nobody has any questions. But if you do, feel free to reach out to Andrew and myself. And you have Kimmy's and Michael's contact information there as well. So thank you all for attending and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Carbone, for presenting. It
Thank
was
you.
very informative. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.